Everyone, welcome to SJECE classes. Your learning is non-stop. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe to this channel. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Today we are going to study the poem Govinda's Disciple. This poem was written by Rabindranath Tagore, who was also known by his pen name Bhanu Singh Thakur. He was a Bengali poet, writer, music composer, and painter from India. He reshaped Bengali literature and music. Tagore's songs were considered spiritual. He was born on 7th July 1861 and died on 7th August 1941. He won Nobel Prize in Literature in 1913. His compositions were chosen by two nations as national anthems, India's Jana Gana Mana and Bangladesh's Amar Sonar Bengal. The Sri Lanka's national anthem was inspired by his work too. In this poem, we are going to study this poem, The Govinda's Disciple by Rabindranath Tagore, beautifully highlights the traits of true master and his disciple who has not been able to overcome his materialistic nature. This poem brings into the focus to the master disciple relationship and shows us how the master teaches values through living examples of painful experiences. So let's start with our poem. Govinda's Disciple. Far below flowed the Ganga, quick and clear. Above frowned the jutling bank. Hills dark with the woods and scared with the torrents were gathered around. So, first of all, we are introduced to the atmosphere that the Ganga was flowing. It was very clear and it was flowing on the banks. The hills were dark, the woods were extending outwards, and the water was moving very swiftly. Govinda, the great teacher, sat on the rock reading scriptures when Raghunath, his disciple, proud of his wealth, came and bowed to him and said, I have bought my poor wealth, unworthy of thy acceptance. The great teacher was sitting on a rock on the bank of the river Ganga. One of his disciples, who was very wealthy, his name was Raghunath. He came to the master, to the teacher, and said to him that first of all he bowed in front of him. Then he presented him with a beautiful gift, a gift of emerald and gem studded golden bangles. Of course, they were very expensive. And this disciple presented these bangles in front of the teacher to show his sincerity towards the teacher. But the sincerity was missing. It only consisted of the disciples show of his wealth. After bowing to him, he offered him the costly gift. The teacher only wants respect, and a student should know that. But here, this teacher who wants to teach his student something, his disciples a lesson, this disciple who has gone insane because of his wealth. He comes in front of the great teacher and presents himself with a golden bangle. Thus saying, he displayed before the teacher a pair of golden bangles studded with costly gems and emeralds. The master took up one of them, twirling it round his finger, and the stones darted shafts of light. So now, this disciple presents the bangle in front of the teacher Govinda. He says that he has brought his poor wealth that is not even worthy of the teacher's acceptance, but still he has brought it. So he presents those bangle in front of the teacher. He says that this I have bought for you. They were very costly. The disciple was totally foolish, as he has brought something so expensive to the teacher, that is Govinda, And he thought to himself that definitely the bangles will make the teacher pleased, happy. The teacher will become happy. He would be very happy. He would think, "Oh my God, my student has brought something so expensive for me." The teacher would be delighted after seeing those bangles. But it wasn't the case. Govinda was not at all pleased with those bangles, because a true teacher does not want wealth in return, especially if the teacher is spiritual. The bangles were beautiful. They were a pair of golden bangles that were studded with gems and emeralds. They were totally costly. They were studded with the costly gems and emeralds. So, by giving this, the disciple Raghunath wanted to show his honesty towards his teacher, his sincerity towards his teacher. The master took one of the bangle and he started twirling it in his finger. And while doing so, the stones of the beautiful bangle darted shafts of light. As it was studded with different kinds of emeralds and gems, it darted shafts of light. Suddenly, it slipped from his hand and rolled down the bank into the water. Raghunath jumped into the water. The teacher set his eyes upon his books, and the water held and hid what it stole and ran its way. So the master teacher took one of the bangles and he started twirling it round his finger. Suddenly, the costly bangle slipped from the master's finger and fell into the strong current of Ganga below. Raghunath, who did not care about himself, he only cared about the bangle. He jumped into the water after the bangle to retrieve it. The master teacher kept sitting peacefully on the rock. The bangle was lost into the water. The master kept on staring at his book, and the water hid the bangle. Whatever the water had stolen, that the water hid it in itself and ran as usual. At sunset, Raghunath came back. He begged him to show him the place where it fell. The teacher took the other bangle and threw it into the water, saying, "There it is." After a long search, Raghunath could not find the bangle and came back to the master. He asked him the exact place where the bangle had fallen. The master quite composedly took the other one and threw it into the exact place in the river where the former bangle had fallen. So the master was not at all shaken, he was not at all confused. He knew what he had to do because he wanted to teach a lesson to his disciple. The disciple, that is Raghunath, came to his teacher for asking that where had the bangle fallen. He asked his teacher to show him the exact place where the bangle had fallen so that he could go and retrieve it. But the teacher did not tell him where it exactly fell, but he took the other one too and threw it in the water and said that there it was. Means he did not accept those bangles because it didn't had the sincerity of the disciple. It only presented his show of wealth. He wanted to present himself as a wealthy disciple, and that is why his offering was not accepted at all. And of course, his teacher wanted to teach him a nice lesson, so he threw both the bangles into the river, and the water also hid it. After throwing the one bangle, the teacher threw the other one too. And Raghunath couldn't find both of them. By doing so, the teacher wanted to teach his disciple a proper lesson. Through this poem, the poet gives the message that true masters don't value materialistic gifts. By literally throwing the bangles away, Govinda, in the most effective figurative way, taught his student that he too should drown in the water his ties to the material world. In today's times, when capitalism has even polluted spiritual leaders, the lesson taught by this poem is highly relevant. So, this poem is not only teaches that particular disciple, but it also teaches the readers, the listeners, to everyone to whom this poem can reach. This poem teaches this very clearly. It passes on the beautiful message that if a person wants to attain the proper knowledge, if a person wants to attain that wealth of knowledge, of education, she must sacrifice themselves, not in the literal meaning, but they must sacrifice their bad habits, they must sacrifice their greed, they must sacrifice their pride. Then only they can be accepted as a proper student or as a proper disciple. Govinda has taught not only his that one particular disciple, but to all those people who have read this poem, who will be reading this poem, that a person who wants to present himself or herself in front of his master, his teacher, then she must know how to renounce himself or herself. Then only they can achieve God. Then only they can achieve the true uh, knowledge. True spiritual knowledge can be attained only when a person is ready to give themselves up. Govinda did not sit and teach him. Like he did not teach him with the nice proper lessons. He did not talk him, he did not flatter him. He just made him realize his mistake by a very painful experience. Of course, it was a painful experience. As the disciple, he was very fond of his wealth. He was too proud of his wealth, of his uh, all the wealth he had, all the money he had. He was very proud of it. And by a very painful experience, Guru Govind taught his disciple a lesson. Sometimes painful lessons are important so that the disciple, the student, can learn the true meaning of knowledge, of spiritual knowledge, and that is what Govinda has taught us. Through this beautiful poem, Rabindranath Tagore has moved us, has taught us, and given us the message that we should not be materialistic. When we want to achieve knowledge, we need to leave behind all the greed, all the pride we have. When we leave behind all the bad things, then only we can receive the true gift of God. True knowledge, true gift of God's can be only blessed to us when we trust God, when we present ourselves very properly, and when we become transparent in front of God by leaving behind our bad traits, our bad behavior. So, the great teacher, he was very calm and composed. He was not at all nervous. He did not think twice that he had thrown such an expensive golden bracelet, because he was not at all greedy. And that is also an important thing. That is why he was a spiritual leader. He was a spiritual teacher, so he did not worry about the value of that bangle. But if in the place of that expensive bangle, if that disciple would have brought something not of that much worth, if he would have brought it from his heart, that did not had too much financial value, monetary value didn't had too much, but the intrinsic value was much more than that, then maybe Govinda would have accepted it. His sincerity would have been accepted. But he was not at all sincere. He was just too proud of his wealth, and by presenting him his prideness, his greediness for wealth, he couldn't have become a proper disciple of Govinda. And even after throwing the bangle, the disciple did not for once ask his teacher that why did he throw that bangle. He just jumps into the water to retrieve it. He did not think that, oh, I should first ask, why did he throw that bangle? He did not think twice. He just jumped into the water. That shows that his love for wealth was too much. He only cared about the money, about the wealth, nothing else. and that is why this lesson was necessary. Guru Govind, by giving a very painful experience, by throwing the bangles, he taught his disciple a very proper lesson. That is not only restricted to that one particular disciple, but to all of us who have read this poem, who have understood this poem. So, through this poem, Guru Govind has taught us, Rabindranath Tagore has beautifully composed this poem, and he has taught us that we should not be greedy, we should be not proud, not too proud of our wealth, we should be as humble as possible. I hope you enjoyed this video, I hope you understood this poem, and thank you for watching.